The soft hum of jazz music filled the luxurious dining room of Ambrosia, one of Los Angeles's most exclusive restaurants. The flickering glow of candlelight danced across the polished wooden tables, and the rich aroma of truffle oil and roasted garlic wafted through the air. Known for its impeccable cuisine and discreet service, Ambrosia was a sanctuary for celebrities and high-profile figures looking to escape the public eye. At a quiet corner table near the window, a man sat alone, his presence understated but commanding. He wore a worn leather jacket over a simple black shirt, blending in with the crowd of high-powered executives and Hollywood elites. His face, weathered but striking, carried an air of familiarity, as if he were someone you had seen before but couldn't immediately place. Mel Gibson wasn't here to be recognized. In fact, he preferred it that way. For him, Ambrosia wasn't just a restaurant. It was a labor of love, a passion project he had quietly overseen for years. Few people knew that he owned the establishment. He liked to observe without fanfare, ensuring that every detail, from the service to the ambiance, met his exacting standards. Tonight, however, was supposed to be a night off. A rare chance to enjoy the restaurant as any other guest would. As Mel perused the menu, a young waitress approached his table. Her name tag read Emily, and she couldn't have been more than 25. She carried herself with the confidence of someone who had been in the industry long enough to feel jaded, her sharp movements and clipped tone betraying a hint of impatience. "Ready to order?" she asked, her voice flat and devoid of the warmth typically expected at Ambrosia. Mel looked up from the menu, offering her a polite smile. "Not quite yet. I'll need a few more minutes," he said in his signature, gravelly tone. Emily sighed audibly, her pen tapping against the notepad in her hand. "All right, but don't take too long. We're slammed tonight," she said, turning on her heel before he could respond. Mel arched an eyebrow, surprised by her abruptness. He had seen his fair share of overworked staff during his career, but Ambrosia prided itself on professionalism. Still, he chose to let it slide, assuming she was simply having a bad day. Minutes later, Emily returned, her expression no friendlier than before. "Have you decided yet, or are we still playing the waiting game?" she asked, her tone bordering on condescending. Mel chuckled softly, his amusement evident. "I'll have the filet mignon, medium rare, and a glass of Cabernet Sauvignon, please." "Finally," Emily muttered under her breath, scribbling down the order without making eye contact. The nearby diners, many of whom had recognized Mel, exchanged uncomfortable glances. While they weren't sure if he was indeed the Mel Gibson, the waitress's behavior was clearly out of line. Mel, however, remained composed, his calm demeanor unshaken by her attitude. When Emily returned with his steak, she set the plate down with an unnecessary clatter, causing the utensils to rattle against the table. The glass of wine wobbled dangerously close to spilling, but Mel's quick reflexes saved it just in time. "Careful," he said lightly, his tone more amused than annoyed. Emily didn't respond, rolling her eyes as she walked away. As the evening progressed, her attitude only worsened. She ignored his subtle attempts at conversation, spoke to him with a brusque tone, and even made snide comments under her breath that were just loud enough for him to hear. The final straw came when she brought him the check. Placing it on the table with a sarcastic smile, she said, "Here you go. Let me know if you can afford the tip." A stunned silence fell over the surrounding tables. Mel set down his fork and looked up at her, his expression unreadable. The tension in the room was palpable, the other diners frozen as they waited to see how he would respond. For a moment, Mel said nothing. He leaned back in his chair, folding his hands in front of him, his calm gaze never leaving Emily's face. The silence felt deafening, and the young waitress shifted uneasily, the confidence she had displayed moments ago beginning to falter under his steady scrutiny. "Thank you," Mel finally said, his voice low and steady. He reached for his wallet, pulling out several crisp $100 bills and placing them neatly into the leather check holder. "This should cover the bill," he added, his tone polite, but carrying a weight that made her flinch slightly. Emily blinked, clearly not expecting such a response. Without another word, Mel stood, buttoning his jacket with a quiet, deliberate motion. He glanced around the dining room, his sharp blue eyes meeting those of a few nearby diners who had been watching the exchange intently. The tension lingered in the air as he turned and walked toward the back of the restaurant, Unknown to Emily and to most of the staff, Mel wasn't heading for the exit. Instead, he made his way to the manager's office, where Daniel, the restaurant's general manager, was finishing up some paperwork. Daniel looked up, startled as Mel walked in. "Mel!" he exclaimed, quickly standing. "What brings you to the office tonight? I didn't know you'd be dining with us." Mel held up a hand, signaling for him to sit. "Daniel, we need to talk," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Let's gather the staff, now." Daniel's brow furrowed in confusion, but he didn't hesitate. He knew Mel's reputation for handling matters directly and efficiently. Within minutes, the entire staff was assembled in the back room, including Emily, who still looked slightly smug, assuming the meeting had nothing to do with her behavior. Mel stood at the center of the room, his hands casually in his pockets. Despite his relaxed posture, there was an unmistakable authority in the way he carried himself. The staff, many of whom recognized him, but had never interacted with him personally, exchanged curious glances. "Good evening, everyone," Mel began, his voice carrying easily across the room. "First, let me say thank you for all the hard work you put in tonight. Running a place like this is no small task, and I appreciate the effort each of you puts into making Ambrosia what it is." The staff nodded politely, a few offering small smiles of gratitude. Emily, however, stood with her arms crossed, her expression indifferent. "But," Mel continued, his tone shifting slightly, "there's something we need to address. Respect." The word hung in the air, and the atmosphere in the room grew heavier. Mel's gaze swept across the group before settling on Emily. She stiffened under his stare, but didn't break eye contact. "Emily," he said, his voice measured, "do you know who I am?" Her brow furrowed slightly and she gave a dismissive shrug. "I don't know. Some customer?" Mel allowed a small smile to play at the corners of his lips. "Not quite," he replied. "I'm Mel Gibson, and I own this restaurant." The room went utterly silent. Emily's eyes widened, her earlier arrogance giving way to visible shock. The other staff members exchanged stunned glances, some murmuring quietly among themselves. Mel's expression remained calm, but there was an unmistakable gravity in his words as he continued. "I've been coming here for years, observing how things run, how customers are treated, and how we maintain the standards that make Ambrosia one of the best restaurants in this city. And tonight," he said, his gaze piercing as it locked onto Emily, "I learned a lot about how some people treat others when they think no one's paying attention." Emily's face flushed a deep red, and she opened her mouth to respond, but Mel raised a hand, silencing her. "Respect," he said again, his voice firm. "It's the foundation of everything we do here. It doesn't matter who walks through those doors, whether they're a celebrity, a CEO, or just someone looking to enjoy a good meal. They deserve to be treated with kindness and professionalism, and if you can't uphold those values, then this isn't the place for you." Emily swallowed hard, her earlier bravado completely gone. She nodded mutely, her eyes cast downward. Mel turned to the rest of the staff, his tone softening slightly. "I don't expect anyone to be perfect. We all have bad days. But what I do expect is that we treat every single person who walks through these doors with the same level of respect and care. That's what makes this place special. That's what makes Ambrosia more than just a restaurant." The staff nodded in agreement, their respect for him evident in their expressions. Even Daniel, who had managed the restaurant for years, seemed impressed by Mel's calm yet authoritative approach. Mel took a deep breath, his expression relaxing into a small smile. "Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to hear me out. Let's make sure that every guest who comes here leaves feeling like they've had an experience worth remembering for the right reasons." With that, the meeting was over. The staff dispersed, whispering among themselves about what had just happened. Emily lingered for a moment, clearly debating whether to approach Mel, but he had already left the room, stepping out into the cool night air. As he walked to his car, Mel glanced back at the restaurant, a faint smile playing on his lips. He knew that tonight's lesson wasn't just about one rude waitress, it was about setting a standard. And for Mel Gibson, that standard was as high as ever. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that inspire and challenge us to grow. What would you have done if you were in his shoes? Let us know in the comments below.